Little Red Riding Hood. There was once a sweet little girl who lived with her father and her mother in a pretty little cottage at the end of the village. At the other end of the woods was another pretty cottage, and in it lived her grandmother. Everybody loved this little girl. Her grandmother perhaps loved her the most and gave her a great many presents. Once, the grandmother gave the little girl a red cloak with a hood which she always wore, so people began to call her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother said, "Put on your things and please go to see your grandmother. She has been very ill, and please take along this basket for her. I have put in it some eggs, butter, cake, and other goodies." It was a bright and beautiful morning, and Little Red Riding Hood was so happy that at first she wanted to dance through the woods. All around her grew pretty wild flowers, which she loved very much, and she wanted to stop to pick a bunch of fresh flowers for her grandmother. Little Red Riding Hood wandered away from her path and was about to pick a flower when from behind her a gruff voice said, "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood." Little Red Riding Hood turned around and saw a great big wolf. But Little Red Riding Hood did not know what a wicked creature the wolf was, so she was not afraid. And she said to the wolf, "Good morning, Mr. Wolf." "And what have you in that basket, Little Red Riding Hood?" asked the wolf. "I have eggs, butter, and cake, Mr. Wolf," answered Little Red Riding Hood. "And where are you going with them, Little Red Riding Hood?" said the wolf. "Mr. Wolf, I am going to see my grandmother, who is very ill," said Little Red Riding Hood. "And where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" said the wolf. "Along that path, past the wild rose bushes, then through the gate at the end of the woods, Mr. Wolf," said Little Red Riding Hood. Then the wolf said, "Goodbye, Little Red Riding Hood. I hope you have a good day," and set off on his way. And Little Red Riding Hood again went in search of wild flowers. Meanwhile, the wolf reached the porch covered with flowers and knocked at the door of the grandmother's cottage. "Who is there?" called the grandmother. "It's me, grandmother, Little Red Riding Hood, your granddaughter," said the wicked wolf, pretending to be Little Red Riding Hood.
"My dear granddaughter, it is so nice of you to visit me. Please press the latch, open the door, and come inside,"
said the grandmother. The wolf pressed the latch and walked in where the grandmother lay in bed. He made one jump at her, but she quickly jumped out of bed into a nearby closet and then locked herself safely inside the closet. Then the wolf put on the cap which the grandmother had just dropped and crept under the bed sheets. A little while later, Little Red Riding Hood knocked at the door and walked in, saying, "Good morning, Granny. I have brought you some eggs, butter, and cake, and here is a bunch of fresh flowers that I picked for you in the woods." As Little Red Riding Hood came nearer to the bed, she said, "Oh, what big ears you have, Granny!" "All the better to hear you with, my dear," answered the wolf, pretending to be the grandmother. "And what big eyes you have, Granny!" said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with, my dear," answered the wolf. "But Granny, what a big nose you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to smell you with, my dear," answered the wolf. But Granny, what a big mouth you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to eat you with, my dear, roar, roar," said the wolf as he sprang at Little Red Riding Hood. Just at that moment, Little Red Riding Hood's father was passing the cottage and heard his daughter's screams. He rushed in with his big axe and scared off the wicked wolf. Everyone was so pleased that Little Red Riding Hood had escaped the wolf. And so Little Red Riding Hood her father, her mother, and her grandmother all lived happily ever after.